Of course, everybody knew who Stephen King was, and I had seen Carrie. I thought it was really interesting, so when I had the opportunity to possibly rewrite a script of his, I was pretty honored. My mom was an English professor at Long Island University, and so I was exposed to literature, reading, and writing at a young age, and probably wrote my first short story when I was 10. I was writing poetry, I was competing, I was sending in essays in competitions when I was 12, 13, 14, winning some of them. And I just always had a facility with words and with writing. I was excited by reading. I was excited by what I read. So, plus early experiences when I was 14, I was an investigative journalist in the small town where I grew up, and I got a local slumlord thrown in jail for a series of exposés on his substandard housing that I wrote about. And I really got bitten by the bug, so that caused me to think that I wanted to become a journalist or investigative journalist. I went to Syracuse University for that. I started off in journalism, got cured of that pretty quick, and decided that what I really wanted to do was creative writing. And always having had a love of movies, movies and television, which I had also watched, constantly as a kid, I decided to try my hand at that. I've been a martial artist most of my life, and I was teaching at the Beverly Hills Karate Academy next to the Troubadour on Santa Monica Boulevard, and I was writing. I was sleeping in the karate school because I didn't have any money, and so I was living there. I was eating on about $1 a day and teaching at night for the right to sleep there and take cold showers and pursue my writing career. And in walked a wonderful gentleman who's been my friend since 1979, close and dear friend, Steve Eccleston, who's written a wonderful book called So You Want to Be a Producer. Everybody should read it. And Steve walked in and he said, I'm looking for a writer who understands and is very experienced in martial arts. And I thought, gee, you came to the right place. So I wrote for him 36 half hours of a syndicated cable television show called Masters of the Martial Arts, and which we were hoping would lose money on a tax basis, and it was hugely popular and starred John Saxon and Richie Baratheon, who became great friends as a result of that. Steve then took a script that I wrote called Force 5 and gave it to some guys at a company called American Cinema. They made it immediately. They bought it, made it, and I was on my way.
Behold, a dream did come to me in the night, and the Lord did show all this to me.
Praise God! Praise the Lord!
A time of tribulation has come.
I had a mutual friend of Mark Lipson's. Mark was the executive in charge of production for Hal Roach Studios, which had optioned Stephen's script based on his short story. And the friend recommended me. Lipson was looking for somebody to rewrite the script. He didn't want to go back to Stephen. You'll have to ask Mark why, but because I really don't know. But he called me in, and I gave him my ideas about it, and he liked my ideas and said, let's give it a go. The problem that I felt Stephen had with his script was that it was not cinematic. It was not visual. It was a great story, but the first 35 minutes was two people in a car in the rain in a cornfield hating each other. And I just didn't think that was going to be that appealing to audiences. So I created these two characters, Joby and Sarah, to be the eyes through which the story would unfold and who we could experience the story through. And that allowed me to create many more visuals, to see visually, the story as that King was telling, and that opened it up. And fortunately, Hal Roach Studios and everybody else agreed with me that that was the right approach. And I never got any pushback on it. And ultimately, all of my ideas wound up in the final draft, and I wound up getting sole screenplay credit for it. I have nothing but good things to say about Stephen King. His career speaks for itself, so he certainly doesn't need me to sing any praises or critique him. But he was very gracious. He didn't like my script from the start. He didn't like the invention of Job and Sarah. He and I had a phone call where he said, "You don't understand the horror genre." And I said, "No disrespect, Mr. King, but I'm not sure you understand cinema. Your work is very internal. And it's great. When I read your work, even when I read your screenplay, it creates a kind of tension in my head. But that's not what happens in a movie theater. And so respectfully, I disagree with you. I feel that your script needs to be externalized and made much more visual and cinematic." And I knew he wasn't on board with that, but later, after the film came out, he was asked in a television interview, which I happened to see, he was asked what he thought of the film. And he was very thoughtful, and without being sarcastic, he said, I think it's the work of people who are going to do better." and I really appreciated that, and I thought, God bless you, Stephen. You're a diplomat as well as a great writer. So thanks to you. My collaboration with Fritz Kirsch was really one of the happiest and best of my career. Fritz is just a great guy. He's a very respectful, he's an artist in his own right, but he's also respectful of other artists. So he met with me when he was hired on to do that. We had a couple of meetings, instantly liked each other. He brought me into rehearsals. We worked with the actors, and I told the actors right from the get-go. I think everybody, even Fritz, was a little surprised when I said at the very first rehearsal, if there's any line in here that you guys don't feel comfortable saying, come to me with it. Let's work on it together. Let me explain to you what I'm getting at. You explain to me how you feel you can best express that, and we'll both be happy. And that's kind of what happened throughout the whole situation. I was there from rehearsals through ADR.
7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7. All right, see?
I wanted Joby and Sarah to be the audience's eyes and ears. And I wanted these two little pack rats to, who could pop up from underneath a barn or down in a hayloft or in a room, and who would also be in danger. So that was my invention. And I felt that it was a way, again, of visualizing the great story that Stephen laid down, an important story that he laid down. But I just felt that also because of the dramatic weight, the gravitas, that it needed to be lightened up a little bit, because so much in the story is so kind of horrific, and all of the ideas are really so heavy when you get down to it, that seeing it through children's eyes would be a counterbalance.
Don't be afraid. We didn't mean to scare you.
I thought the casting really worked. Linda went on to have a great career, and I think this really helped propel her career. Peter was a little bit more structured in his acting approach, so that was going to limit some of the roles that he got, but he was perfect in this cast. Courtney and John Franklin were great because they looked the parts. Courtney was kind of like this big, scary teenager, had a kind of malevolent look to him. And of course, Isaac was our little Ayatollah. He was he was perfectly cast. His size, his delivery, his intensity. He was great.
The Lord did come to me, and he was a shape. It was he who walks behind the rose.
Children of the Corn is extremely relevant today, maybe more relevant than it was before, ever before, because it's about the dangers of religious extremism. It's about religious fundamentalism and the theocratic impulse to invoke God as the genesis and the supporter of your ideas. So, you know, whether it's actually, Children of the Corn was really based on the revolution in Iran and the taking of the Americans as hostages. And if you look at the film in that context, you'll see, you know, Bert and Vicky as the American hostages. You'll see our little Ayatollah Khomeini. You'll see the Revolutionary Guard in Courtney. Even the gas station owner who gets his throat cut is the American oil companies. So all of the aspects of the revolution in Iran became a context for Children of the Corn. But it's a universal story, and it applies whether we're talking about an Adolf Hitler, an Idi Amin, an Ayatollah Khomeini. You know, dictators and fascists are what they are. And unfortunately, when they invoke God, when they invoke religion, they become even more dangerous because they attract so many more ignorant subscribers who are willing to do their bidding because they think they're doing God's work. It's probably the most dangerous and virulent form of oppression in the world today, and we're not immune to it. The United States is not immune to it. You know, many Western countries have these budding theocracies who want to tell everybody else what to do, how to live, what to think, what not to think, and they all base it on God, and it's dangerous. And I hope that anybody who looks at Children of the Corn will see it in that context.
Down on your knees, heretic!
Shut your mouth, Isaac. You don't prize one apart from us.
Gosh.
He who walks behind the rose will decide your fate.
I was very pleased with it. I'd say the only regret that I have is that we didn't have a bigger budget, because I think we could have done some things. We could have had some better production values that were limited not by the talent of the people involved, but more by our budget limitations. But overall, I was very pleased with it, and it's been an enduring cult classic, so I guess I can't complain. It didn't really do a lot for my career, I think partly because it was low budget, partly because it was a horror film, and people in Hollywood tend to categorize and pigeonhole, at least when I was working there, they tended to pigeonhole you. Oh, well, he's a horror writer. He's a low-budget horror writer. And so in some ways, it actually hurt my career. In other ways, I mean, I did have one studio executive. You know, I went in for a meeting at Columbia, and a studio executive said, we're interested in having you write a picture for us. And I said, well, I hope that there was criticism of the film because it was low budget and all that. And I said, I hope that won't influence your judgment in me as a writer. And he held up the box office reports from the Hollywood Reporter, and he said, here's your review. And so that was, that was encouraging. I didn't get that job, by the way. So I didn't quite make the A-list. But overall, it was a great experience. I mean, it was a great experience for me as a human being. I really liked the people I worked with. I developed a great friendship with Fritz Kirsch. And I went on to write other pictures. I have to say that no one contacted me about writing, despite the fact that Children of the Corn was a hit, and I did a good job, and I got along with everybody. I had a great experience. None of the subsequent producers spoke to me about writing any of the sequels. I probably would have, at least one or two. I wouldn't have written all of them, but even if I was asked, but I wasn't. And I think probably that was because they knew I'd ask for more money. And with low-budget horror film sequels, they try to make each succeeding one less expensive than the previous one. So I think that's probably why I wasn't asked. In terms of what what it meant to me. You know, I was given a job to do and I did it. And I did it to the best of my ability, given all the work parameters that I had. Had a short period of time to do it. We had a low budget. We had a first-time director, first-time producer, relatively inexperienced actors. And I think it came out really well. But that's how I look at it. I had a job to do. I've had many jobs to do in my life. I always try to do the best I can. I look back at Children of the Corn. It was fun. It was exciting. It was not lucrative. It didn't put any money in my pocket. In fact, it made a bunch of other people rich. It didn't make me rich. It didn't make Fritz rich. But that was just how it was, and maybe still is in Hollywood. But that's not why I did it. I did it because I love to write. I love movies. And the fact that my name is on even a little cult classic like that is really fun. So I look back on it as a great experience. I'd do it all over again. I did sort of do it over again more than once. And was it the highlight of my life? No, my children were the highlight of my life. But it was a great experience, and I'm really glad I had it.